Hey guys, welcome to Art Science Wonder. If you've never been here before, I talk about all sorts of topics. I probably won't be talking politics a ton on this channel, but since it is 2020 and the next election is coming up, it's a very important topic. So I want to talk to you first-time voters. You first-time voters or, independents, people who still haven't thought about who their favorite candidate is, how to register, and how to do that easily. And a little bit about the democratic process. So I'm going to be reading from a script to some degree because it's a lot of information and I really want to get this right. So again, it's the year 2020, and if you cast your ballot for the President of the United States, you have to start with the primaries. So the primaries are the first cycle of the election that determines who is going to be on the ballot for the general election. So it's basically like there's two forms of voting, or two times in which you have to vote. First is to determine who will be the Democratic or Republican candidate on the ballot, as in who is going to be the front runner. Okay, so the one that people will most likely choose between, the Republican candidate or the Democratic candidate, since we are in a two-party system. So if you would rather decide who that is instead of waiting for other voters to decide for you, then you must vote in the primaries, which begin on different dates for different states, starting with Iowa on February 3rd. So it's coming up, okay? And if you're interested in those dates, they're in the description below, so you know when your state votes. Okay, if you're a millennial or a Generation Z in this particular election, you have more power in your hands than ever before. In 2015, according to the census, millennials surpassed baby boomers by nearly 8 million, okay? And that was 5 years ago. And it's predicted that first-time voters and independents will determine this election in particular. So it's very, very important. Trump's presidential candidacy has been, of course, harmful not only to those living in the US, but also living globally. The environment, inequality, and healthcare are the most pressing issues of this particular election, and that's why it's very important to register to vote. So here I've included an easy way to register through this app called VoterPal. Okay, it's where you simply take a picture of your ID and it fills out the rest for you, and they make it super easy. You just literally have to click a couple buttons and you're done. Okay, and then it'll tell you, what's next. And then also, of course, you're going to want to look into your state, what to bring on election day. So some states, especially if you're a first-time voter, they may require like a bill showing that you have kind of like what your address is, kind of to make sure that that's your address. Of course, they're going to want your state ID and stuff like that. So make sure you know what you have to bring on election day or on the primaries, and then on election, the general. But then, that way you'll be all set, okay? So now I would like to endorse a candidate who's my favorite. Of course, you don't have to pick them, but if you're still wondering, still looking, there's still a ton of candidates to you that you're like, oh, I kind of like what they say, and I like what they say. I'm just going to give my humble opinion. So I want to endorse Andrew Yang. His policies for the environment, inequality, healthcare, and foreign policy to me make the most sense. Most people know him as the $1,000 a month guy, but he's not a one policy candidate. He has over 160 plus in-depth policies, and that's probably more than any candidate, well, for certain, any more than any candidate that's been in the top, but actually more than probably any candidate in US history. So it's quite a lot of policies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to condense them for you. So let's see. Oh yeah, and his slogan is MATH. It stands for Make America Think Harder. So Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff. And so here's my summarization. Here's Yang's environmental plan. It includes two very important, in my opinion, lesser known solutions. As somebody who studied biology and a lot of environmental science and environmental systems and how they work and how they, maintain their cycles, their healthy cycles, I know a lot about this. So, the first one is ocean iron fertilization. The majority of imbalance of the Earth's atmosphere is due to an improper ratio of oxygen and greenhouse gases. Excessive greenhouse gases cause ocean heating, heat waves, massive fires, hurricanes, and on and on and on. It just basically upsets the balance, right? So most people don't know, for instance, that around 70% of all of Earth's oxygen are actually produced by photosynthetic life forms called plankton and green algae. The idea behind ocean iron fertilization is using small iron filings that stimulate healthy blooms of plankton and algae. So literally, Yang will restore balance to the force, okay? I mean, it will literally help the Earth produce more oxygen, help the oceans get cooler, just all sorts of stuff. It's not the end-all be-all, but it is a major solution that I think would make incredibly huge impact because we are a water planet. We're mostly a blue planet. We're more water than land, etc. You get the point, right? Okay, so number two interesting solution that he has that I think is totally under talked about, but is actually frequently talked about in the scientific community, is next generation thorium nuclear reactors. And it sounds scary, but it's totally not. Thorium is completely different than uranium. It's a highly abundant element on Earth. It's actually 3 times more abundant than uranium and about the same radioactivity. Only thorium-based reactors, here's the thing, are many times safer because the reaction can easily be stopped and because the operation does not have to take place under the same extreme pressures. So a tiny ball of thorium about this size can provide an individual energy for their entire lifetime. And the bonus about thorium is that it can be reused twice before needing to be stored, in which it's only radioactive for about 100 years, which is compared to uranium's like 1,000 to 1,000,000 years of radioactivity. I mean, that's manageable. That's within a human lifetime. Okay, and also another benefit foreign policy wise is that it can't be used to produce fuel for nuclear weapons like uranium can, so it's safe for other countries to use these reactors. Now on to Yang's healthcare plan. Millions of Americans are in this thing called a job lock, which is because of healthcare. So they feel like they can't leave their job because that's how they get their healthcare, etc. And it's why Yang supports the spirit of Medicare for all. And what he means by that is he's for the idea of it and the essence of it, but he knows that what it would mean is reformatting 18% of the US economy to basically then kick people off of their private insurance. And people may like their private insurance. People may have serious illnesses that they're used to their doctors on their private insurance and their particular plan. They've already worked everything out and etc. And it's so on and so on. So instead he says that the government's job is to make Medicare appealing enough for people to choose to leave their private insurance by being competitive with private insurers. In other words, he's for optimizing people's right to choose and make decisions on the most important thing of all, their health, okay, and their children's health or their future children's health. It's all very important that people have that right to choose, I believe. So in the details of Yang's healthcare plan, he emphasizes preventative medicine. And being that like a lot of my family like are in the medical field. My dad's a doctor. You know, I have tons of nurses and doctors in my family. I love that he stresses preventative medicine, and he also, another thing I love is that he stresses minimizing the time-consuming bureaucratic mess that takes vital time away from doctors and their patients. I can't tell you how many memories I have of my dad staying late after working all day taking care of patients, and then afterwards having to sit there, you know, with his accountant or you know, his like lady who helped him with the paperwork, who was very nice, and just sitting there for hours, poring over paperwork. Okay, other nations and like Europe and places like that, they have basically a Medicare or a medical system that already has everybody's health information in a massive database. So when they go to the emergency room or they go to a new doctor, they don't have to fill everything out again like we do here in the United States, over and over and over again. Or, you know, the emergency rooms aren't like flying blind, you know, like they know they can access instantly you know, all their patients' history, and that just makes more sense. And you know, Andrew Yang is also the technological candidate. He also talks a lot about you know, improving technology and communications and so on for the medical system. And I believe even one of his companies, his nonprofits, because he's a nonprofit guy, kind of somebody who's worked in the public sector a lot for public good, was actually a medical company, I believe, that did something similar to this, like helped with medical communications and made things easier for doctors and patients. And so that's another thing that I would like love for America to, and American doctors have to deal less with, is the bureaucratic system. So next is pharmaceutical drugs and pharmaceutical drug prices. Yang's plan to lower pharmaceutical drug costs is the most innovative, brilliant plan I have seen so far or ever heard. So he says that right now the government is not allowed to negotiate for drug prices on behalf of the American people because, as we know, drug lobbying is so powerful. And so he has like you know, a plan, a 4-point plan. He says it's for 1, to negotiate lower drug prices; by 2, adopting international standards and apply it to American drug companies based on a cost average. Duh. Duh. Okay, so 3, the government would have the ability to forcibly license your drug if you did not follow number 2. So basically I think it has to do with, like, I'm not a lawyer and stuff, but I think it has to do with patent law. So basically I think he could seize their patent, and then, yeah, the government would then own the patent, and then 4, it would be like the last thing that would happen. The hammer basically says is they would have to, you know, they would seize the patent, and they would we would have our own manufacturing facilities, and we would manufacture the drug under our own license. So like the general, you know, it would be like the generic drug, you know, the ones that you can get over the counter that costs less. And then Yang gets, he was criticized a lot for, like his foreign policy is weak, but his foreign policy is awesome. So he also has a 3-part plan in his foreign policy about what he would do before sending our troops into harm's way, which is, of course, very important. You know, we care about our military. We care, you know, we have husbands and, you know, sons and wives, etc. in the military. And he says, 1, there needs to be a clear reason or clear American national interest that, you know, would also be able to maybe avert, like, such as averting a humanitarian catastrophe. And 2, there needs to be a clearly defined time frame where it's not open-ended, you know, like where we're going to be there forever. We don't know when we're going to leave, okay? And then 3, we need to have partners and allies that are willing to join us in the mission, because obviously that says it's an important mission. So he says if it fulfills those three qualifications, then he would, you know, it would be okay, or not okay, but, you know, it would lead to action. So, and then of course is Yang's solution to inequality is the last one that I want to outline. But he, as many people know, he wants to administer a universal basic income called the freedom dividend. It would be $1,000 for every adult over the age of 18, and Yang emphasizes that this is not a large government program run by case managers, but a dividend for citizens who would be looked at as shareholders of the 21st century economy, who will reap the benefits of automation and the fourth industrial revolution, and we'll get more into that here in a bit. But first, let's look at the cost, okay? Because that's what everybody asks, so let's get right to it. The Bureau of Statistics and Tax Revenue estimated Yang's plan for universal basic income would cost around $3 trillion, but according to Yang, it would cost less than $2 trillion. One of the biggest lies we're told as Americans is that we don't have the money. For instance, the current U.S. economy is nearly $22 trillion, and we're the largest economy in the world, guys, okay? And we have been since 1871. One of the ways Yang would pay for the freedom dividend is by consolidating some of the welfare programs. We're currently spending about $1.5 trillion on 126 different welfare programs and social security programs, but if you offer people an unconditional sum of money, most people on those programs would forego those income-dependent plans for a guaranteed $1,000 a month. That does not penalize them for making more or getting a part-time job. This allows people to finally escape the cycle of poverty that many times is not due to their lack of ambition, but which is systemic, since every time they do better, they're penalized by immediately losing the amount they made in benefits. It's like being a mouse on a wheel and you simply can't jump off. So the dividend is opt-in, and $1,000 a month would stack on top of SSI and retirement, but cash and cash-like benefits such as SNAP would not be eligible. Again, many people on these programs are afraid of losing their benefits and would rather have a guaranteed stipend. Some of the highest cost savings for taxpayers are on the back end of poverty, such as incarceration and homelessness. Taxpayers would be saving on countless emergency visits by the homeless and the cost of incarceration of people who were incarcerated due to theft or as a result of this cycle of poverty. The goal here is to help break the cycle, not to keep people in it. And Yang's plan solves this issue. The second way Yang's plan would pay for the freedom dividend is by implementing a value-added tax. Now, what exactly is a value-added tax? Well, that depends on the country, but basically it's a form of consumption tax. In this case, it would be less than half of Europe's value-added tax, which is currently around 22%, or in other words, ours would be a 10% consumption tax that would be tailored towards luxury goods, items, and services, exclude necessary goods such as food, clothing, and diapers. And in Yang's plan, he focuses heavily on the financial gains of automation and what is called by experts the fourth industrial revolution. By taxing the largest trillion-dollar companies such as Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc., on their services such as Google ads, Facebook ads, etc., whom, by the way, are currently paying $0 in federal tax dollars, we could afford to give every American over the age of 18 $1,000 a month. And yes, I do believe it. Okay, so Yang is not a shallow candidate. Like all things Yang, his ideas are full of substance and nuance. My summary scratches at the surface here of his ideas and his policies, so I've included my Andrew Yang Not Left, Not Right, but Forward playlist in the description below, which can also be found in my YouTube playlists if you ever need to come back to it. or want to share it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you would like to make a contribution to my channel, please do so at my Ko-fi.com link. Ko-fi is an alternative to Patreon where you can do a one-time donation, or if I get enough people interested in donating monthly, I can upgrade to accept monthly donations. So it's like buying me a coffee. That's why it's called Ko-fi. I don't know, something like that. But I hope that this was informative. I hope that you guys check out Andrew Yang, and even if you don't, I really hope that you register to vote. It's very important that you participate in the electoral process. Thank you. Bye.